You're going to think I'm crazy, or maybe irresponsible, possibly both. But here it is. I took time off during tax season this year. Not a working vacation where I answered emails poolside, not a long weekend where I was back at my desk Monday morning, a few real days off to watch the Mountain West basketball tournament in March, and nothing burned down. Hey friends, welcome to the Thrive Advisor podcast, where we help tax advisory firm owners build practices that are sustainable and profitable. I'm your host, Aaron Siegel. And today we're talking about something that most tax professionals consider impossible, maybe even irresponsible: taking real time off during the busy season. Not because you're reckless, but because you've built something that can handle your absence. By the end of this episode, you'll have a framework for planning time away that doesn't destroy your practice, a system for setting client expectations that actually stick, and hopefully permission to stop treating tax season like a 4-month hostage situation. So let's get into it. So let's start with some honesty. Our industry has a martyrdom problem. We wear our suffering like a badge. I haven't taken a day off since January. I worked every weekend this season. Sleep? What's that? We say these things in a tone that's half complaint, half brag, and we expect admiration in return. But here's what I've learned. Nobody is impressed. Your clients aren't impressed. Your family definitely isn't impressed. And deep down, you're not impressed either. You're just tired. And I used to be headed down that path. When I started my practice a few years ago, I scaled fast, really fast. And with that speed came all the classic mistakes compressed into a very short window. There were stretches where I worked straight through the week, barely present for my fiance, now my wife. I missed my daughter's basketball games because I was buried in client work, and I kept telling myself it was temporary. Just get through the season, just land a few more clients, just build a little more runway. But temporary has a way of becoming permanent if you let it. The turning point came when I realized I was building exactly the kind of practice I'd warned myself against. I'd left a career in financial technology for independence and flexibility, and somehow I'd created something with less of both. So I made a choice. I was going to build systems that let me actually live my life, even during the busy season. In 2024, my wife and I took time off for our wedding and honeymoon in April. Yes, April. And this year, I took a few days off to watch the Mountain West tournament in March. Next year, I'm doing the tournament again. It's not about being cavalier with your client work. It's about building something sustainable from the start instead of grinding yourself down and trying to fix it later. So let's talk about what constant availability actually costs you. First, there's the quality problem. When you're exhausted, you make mistakes. Not the obvious ones that get caught in review, the subtle ones. The strategy you didn't think of because your brain was fried. The planning opportunity you missed because you were too focused on just getting through the pile. Your clients think they're getting your best because you're always available. They're actually getting a diminished version of you running on caffeine and stubbornness. Second, there's the relationship cost. I'm not just talking about your family, although that's real. I'm talking about your client relationships too. When you're burned out, you start resenting the people you serve. Every email becomes an interruption. Every question feels like an imposition. You stop being the advisor who genuinely cares, and you start being the advisor who's just trying to survive. And your clients can feel that. They might not be able to name it, but they feel it. And third, there's the business risk. If you're the only one who can do everything and you get sick, what happens? If you have a family emergency, what happens? You've built a single point of failure into your entire operation, and that's not dedication. That's just bad business design. I know an advisor who had a health scare during busy season a few years back. Nothing life-threatening, but enough that he needed to step away for a couple of weeks. His practice nearly imploded. Clients were furious, deadlines were missed. It took him months to recover the trust and the revenue. If you've been in this business for more than a year or two, you know that story from someone around your circle. And here's the part that gets me. The next tax season, he did the exact same thing. Same overwork, same constant availability, same single point of failure, and he ended up back in the hospital. He learned nothing except that he got lucky once and probably would again until he didn't. And that's the wrong lesson. The right lesson is build something that doesn't fall apart when you're not there. And let me be clear about what I mean by vacation during tax season, because I'm not suggesting you disappear for 3 weeks to backpack through Europe. I'm talking about intentional breaks, a long weekend here, a few days there, enough time to actually rest, to be present with the people you love, to remember why you're building this thing in the first place. And for me, it's things like the basketball tournament or taking some time away with my wife. These aren't month-long sabbaticals. There are strategic breaks that require planning and systems, but prove that the practice can function without my hands on everything. And the key word there is planned. This isn't about spontaneously deciding to check out. It's about building the infrastructure that makes time away possible and then using it. Here's what I've learned about what makes a real break versus a fake break. A real break means you're not checking email. You're not just quickly scanning for emergencies. Not at all. If you're monitoring your inbox, you are not resting. Your brain is still in work mode, waiting for the next fire. A real break means someone else is handling things. Not things are on pause until I get back. Actually handled. Clients getting responses, the urgent stuff getting triaged, the machine running without your hands on it. A real break means you come back better. Not more behind than when you left, not dreading the pile that accumulated. Better, rested, and actually glad to be back at work. If you can't imagine the last one, that's a sign you need to change something fundamental about how your practice operates. Now, the foundation of taking time off is having clients who don't expect you to be available 24/7 in the first place. This starts way before you book the trip. It starts in how you set up the relationship from day one. Here's what I communicate to every client built right into the engagement letter. Response times are defined in the contract. My SLA is 3 business days. That's what clients agree to. In practice, I average a response within about 4 business hours because my systems are tight and I'm not drowning in chaos. But the expectation is set at 3 days, which means when I'm away for a few days, I'm still within the bounds of what I promised. And this is important. If you've trained clients to expect instant responses, taking any time off feels like abandonment to them. If you've set realistic expectations from the start, a few days of slower response is entirely normal. Deadlines are planned, not panicked. We set realistic timelines at the start of every engagement. If a client waits until March 15th to send me their documents for an S-Corp return, they're filing an extension. That's not my emergency, and I don't say that harshly, but I'm clear that late documents mean extended timelines. Communication goes through this normal systems, email or client portal, not text messages to my personal phone, not calls to my cell. The systems are where the work lives, and the system is what gets monitored. And I know you're probably thinking, that sounds great, Aaron, but my clients would never go for that. But here's the thing, they do. Because the clients who want a vendor on call 24/7 aren't actually good clients. They're stress factories, and they drain your energy and pay the same as everybody else. The clients worth keeping are the ones who value expertise over availability. They want an advisor who's sharp, rested, and thinking clearly about their situation. They don't want someone who answers emails at midnight but is too fried to catch the real planning opportunities. When you set boundaries from the beginning, you attract clients who respect boundaries. When you train clients that you're always available, you attract clients who expect you to always be available. You're selecting for the relationship you want with every signal you send. So let's get into the mechanics of actually making this thing work. So before, we got to do the setup. At least 2 to 3 weeks before your planned time away, you need to do some preparation. First, audit your commitments. What's due while you're gone? What client work is in progress? What deadlines are non-negotiable versus flexible? Get a clear picture of the landscape. Second, accelerate what you can. So if something can be done before you leave, do it. Don't leave a pile of work that's going to stress you out while you're supposed to be relaxing. Push to get ahead so you're leaving from a position of control, not chaos. And third, communicate proactively. Tell your clients you'll be away. Not, I might be slow to respond to my email, but I will be out of the office from X to Y date. Tell them who to contact if something truly urgent comes up. Tell them when to expect to hear from you after your return. And this communication shouldn't be apologetic. You're not asking permission. You're informing them of reality. I'll be taking some time away during the week of X. I've arranged coverage for anything urgent, and I will be back in touch on Y date. That's it. And fourth, set up your coverage. So this is where the work from the last episode comes in. If you've built systems, if you've documented your processes, if you have people who can handle things, this step is straightforward. If you haven't, this is your wake-up call. My backup is my executive assistant in the Philippines. She monitors incoming communications while I'm away. If the IRS is knocking at someone's door, she lets me know. Otherwise, she writes back and lets clients know that I will get back to them when I return. Simple, clear, professional. And you don't need a full team to make this work. You just need one person who can triage and communicate. That's the minimum viable coverage. And this doesn't have to be someone on your staff. If you have friends in the industry, they can always cover for you and you can cover for them when they're gone. Make it work. But fifth is going to be to set up that out of office. So you got to make it real, not I'll have limited access to email, which means nothing. Something like I'm away from the office until X date. For urgent matters, contact backup. I'll respond to all messages when I return. And then during, we've got to get the discipline. And this is the hard part for most of us, actually disconnecting. Here's my rule. I remove my email apps from my phone during the real breaks. Not just turn off the notifications, remove the app entirely. Because I know myself, and if it's there, I'll check it. Really, checking it once means I'm not really away. I trust my assistant to surface anything that genuinely can't wait. Everything else will be there when I get back. The first day is the hardest. You'll feel phantom vibrations. You'll wonder what's happening. You'll have moments of panic that something important is falling apart. But push through it. By day 2 or 3, something's going to shift. Your brain starts to actually rest. You become present with wherever you are instead of mentally still at your desk. When I was at the basketball tournament this year, there was a moment on day 2 where I realized I hadn't thought about work in hours. I was just watching the games, enjoying the atmosphere, being fully present. And that's not something that happens when you're checking your email between every time out. And then after, we're going to have the reentry. And how you come back matters as much as how you leave. So don't schedule anything for your first day back. No calls, no meetings, just processing. You need time to go through what has accumulated, assess the landscape, and get your bearings. Start with the triage, so what's actually urgent, what just feels urgent because it's been sitting there. Most things that seem critical while you were away have either resolved themselves or they're not as time sensitive as the sender thought. Resist the urge to make up for the lost time by immediately going into overdrive. You just rested. Don't burn through that reserve in 48 hours trying to prove you're back. Ease in, the work will get done, and take note of what happened while you were gone. Did things run smoothly? That's evidence that your systems work. Did something fall apart? That's information about where your systems need improvement. Both outcomes are useful. And here's something I want to emphasize. I didn't inherit this problem and then fix it over decades. I started my practice a few years ago and built these systems from the beginning or close to it. And yes, I made mistakes. Yes, there were stretches of overwork. But the corrections happened fast because I was intentional about it. I saw where things were headed and I course corrected before it became a decade of bad habits. If you're early in your practice, you have an advantage. You can build the boundaries and the systems now before the clients are trained to expect constant availability. You can hire your first assistant with coverage in mind from the start. You can put response time SLAs in your engagement letters before anyone knows any different. If you're further along and have years of always available expectations baked in, it's harder, but it's not impossible. You reset expectations gradually. You communicate changes clearly. You accept that some clients might not like that, and those might not be the clients you want anyway. And the point is, this isn't something that only works for established practices with big teams. I'm doing it with an executive assistant and good systems. The principles scaled down. And what about your team? If you have people working with you, they need time off too. And if you've built a culture where nobody ever disconnects, you're going to burn through good people fast. Here's how I think about it. Time off should be real for everyone, not just the owner. If you're taking breaks during busy season, your team should have that option too. Staggered, planned, covered, but real. When your team sees you're taking real time off, it gives them permission to do the same. When they see you answering emails at 11 p.m., they think that's the expectation. You model the culture you want. And just like last episode, I want to give you explicit permission here. You are allowed to take time off during tax season. You are allowed to be unavailable for a few days. You are allowed to miss an email. You are allowed to prioritize your family, your health, your sanity. This doesn't make you a bad advisor. It doesn't mean you don't care about your clients. It means you understand that sustainability matters, that you can't pour from an empty cup, and that the long game requires preservation. The advisors who burn out completely aren't serving anyone. The advisors who lose their families to the job aren't winning. Building something that gives you your life back isn't a nice to have. It's the whole point. I talk to practitioners all the time who feel guilty even thinking about taking a day off during busy season. They've so internalized the martyrdom that rest feels like a betrayal. But a betrayal of what? Like a culture that's slowly killing people? An expectation that nobody actually benefits from? Your clients want an advisor who's going to be around for the long haul. You can't be that advisor if you're grinding yourself down to nothing every year. Here's what I want you to see. Taking time off during tax season isn't just about vacation. It's a test of whether you've built something sustainable. If you can't step away for a few days without everything falling apart, that's valuable information. It means you have work to do on your systems, your team, your client expectations. It means you're one health crisis away from disaster. If you can step away and run things smoothly, that's evidence you've built something real. A practice that's bigger than just you. A business that actually functions like a business instead of a fragile house of cards with you at the center. The goal isn't to work less because you're lazy. The goal is to build something that doesn't require your constant presence to survive. Then you can choose how much to work based on what you want, not what the practice demands. I still work plenty during tax season. I'm not suggesting you check out entirely, but I work because I choose to, not because everything collapses the moment I stop. That's a different feeling entirely. So your action plan. Here's what I want you to do. This week, look at your calendar for your next busy season. Find 3 to 5 days you could potentially take off. Not, I'll take time off if nothing comes up. Actually block them. Put them in your calendar as unavailable. Next, audit your systems. If you left for those days tomorrow, what would break? What has no coverage? What depends entirely on you? Make a list. That's your project list for the next few months. Then examine your client expectations. What response times have you promised? What have you trained clients to expect through your behavior? If there's a gap between what's sustainable and what your clients expect, start closing it. Update your engagement letter, communicate changes to existing clients. Finally, plan one real break. Even if it's just a long weekend, put it on the calendar. Tell people it's happening, set up your coverage, and when the time comes, actually disconnect. You might be surprised. The world keeps turning, your clients survive, and you come back better than you left. Building a sustainable practice isn't just about revenue or client count or the strategies you know. It's about building something that supports the life you want instead of consuming it. Tax season doesn't have to be a 4-month prison sentence. It can be busy and demanding while still leaving room for the people and things that matter most. But that only happens if you build it that way intentionally. The advisors who thrive long-term aren't the ones who work the most hours. They're the ones who build practices that work for them. They set boundaries, they build systems, they protect their energy, and yes, they take real time off, even during tax season. You can be one of those advisors. It just requires letting go of the martyrdom story and building something different. If you're ready to build systems with advisors who get it, come join us in the Thrive Advisor Collective on School. The link is in the show notes. If this sparked a light bulb for you, share this episode with another advisor who thinks taking time off during busy season is impossible. Let them know there's another way. You've been listening to the Thrive Advisor podcast. Work smarter, serve better, thrive always. We'll see you next time.